SCHMICAGO, my god, hey! There's something in that. Welcome back to my stagey YouTube channel. If you're meeting me for the first time, hello, my name is Mickey Joe and I am obsessed with all things theatre and very much musicals. I am not usually dressed like this, which begs the question, why not? Because this, honestly, I'm very comfortable with this outfit right now. But I'm wearing this today because I'm going to be talking to you all about SCHMICAGO, aka Schmigadoon Season 2. Yes, Schmigadoon is back on Apple TV. If you know nothing about this show, Season 1 saw a modern couple from the real world transported into a magical fantasy land of musical theatre parody. In that first season, they found themselves in the quaint town of Schmigadoon, where everyone sang and danced and was a little bit socially backwards. They met the mayor and the folksy townspeople. And everything was a very thinly veiled parody of classic Golden Age musicals like Carousel and The Music Man. There were also homages within the plot to musicals like Oklahoma and songs that referenced shows like Showboat and The King and I. Not to mention, of course, Brigadoon and Finian's Rainbow. So spoiler alert, at the very end of that first season, our protagonists Josh and Melissa were able to escape from the fantasy realm of Schmigadoon by reconnecting with each other on a romantic level, and the characters moved from this sort of golden age pastiche musical theatre number into something a little bit more contemporary, but only a few decades more contemporary. It started to sound a little bit more like Godspell, setting us up for Season 2. So today I'm going to be talking to you all about the first episode of the second season of Schmigadoon, in which we find ourselves travelling to SCHMICAGO. I'm going to tell you what I thought about this new season, about this first episode, and I'm going to tell you every single musical theatre Easter egg that I found within this episode. There will be more that I did not notice because these writers are putting little details in everywhere. I did my best to find as many as I could, but I am not necessarily a music expert, so I dare say there are very sneaky references all over the underscoring to this TV show. I encourage you to watch it for yourselves and then let me know in the comments section which musical references you spotted. If you enjoyed today's video, there are two things you must do. I am planning to do this for every single episode of the season, a little bit of an episode recap, plus all of the Easter eggs from that episode, as well as my own little mini review of it. So make sure you're subscribed to my channel, and I might drop them early for members as well. So make sure you sign up at the link in the description to be one of my YouTube members for just £2.99 a month. They basically see all my videos first, as well as the occasional extra. Also, if you like watching videos all about Schmigadoon and SCHMICAGO, you need to go and subscribe to Broadway by Ghostlight, aka my very good friend Mark, who makes amazing content all about this TV show, as well as many other facets of Broadway and musical theatre. Make sure you go subscribe to him as well. Now, let's talk all about SCHMICAGO. Okay, I have 13% battery and a dream. Let's do this. Wow, this blazer does not look like it would be this warm. Woo! So when we open this episode, Josh and Melissa are back in the real world, and they clearly have a hankering for the pleasant charm of Schmigadoon. They are trying to conceive a child. They got married after the events of the first season, thrilled for them, but they are struggling to conceive a baby. Kind of like a couple I know from a certain Sondheim musical. Into the Woods, it's Into the Woods. So with a very grey and normal colour palette, we see them living out their lives and going to work, and we start to see it becoming very repetitive and a little bit soul-crushing. Melissa runs into a woman in the grocery store who is played by Jessica Vosk of Wicked, by the way, fun fact, and she's reminded of the Corn Puddin' song from Season 1 from the land of Schmigadoon, and you can see her light up with excitement and enthusiasm, and instinctively the two of them decide that they want to return to Schmigadoon, so they go in search of it. And when they do, they actually return into some woods, the woods that they originally got lost in when they found their way into Schmigadoon, and helpfully what plays in the underscoring under this moment is the actual music from Into the Woods, specifically that would underscore the words Into the Woods in the song, Into the Woods. Just to really labour that point there. When they do this, they are dressed anticipating Schmigadoon, so Keegan-Michael Key looks a little bit like Harold Hill, one of the characters that he was kind of compared with in the first season, but they are unable to find the bridge that they crossed in order to get to Schmigadoon, so they get back into their car, and then the car comes to an abrupt halt because they have a flat tyre, and they have to get out and survey their surroundings, kind of like Brad and Janet do towards the beginning of Rocky Horror. Anybody? Maybe there's something there, maybe it's a coincidence. But it's at this point they see the bright, beckoning lights of SCHMICAGO, and they come to realize, just as we do, that they are indeed back in a musical fantasy world, but one that's going to be a little bit different. And we're greeted by Titus Burgess and an ensemble cast with some familiar faces from the first season, but in different character roles. So Titus Burgess is wearing a sparkly sequin blazer, not unlike this one, and sings a song that is instantly familiar of Magic to Do from Stephen Schwartz's Pippin. And that's because this whole era is going to be based on the musicals that seem to be of the 60s and 70s. Think Cabaret and Chicago and Godspell and Hair and Sweeney Todd, as well as Pippin and a chorus line. So not only is the music of this song very familiar of Magic to Do, but the structure is taken completely out of it as well. We have a very similar sounding dance break, we have the same white glove choreography hands, very Fosse style from the original Broadway production of the show, with Titus filling in for the Ben Vereen style leading player. We even have a parody of the Magic to Do lyric Doodly Doo with Schmigadoon. It also parodies that part of Magic to Do where you have all of the different characters who will play the principal roles in Pippin singing at the beginning of the show, giving you like the intrigue, plots to bring disaster. And so we have a few of the principal players of the season doing those moments. We also have the iconic final choreography from Magic to Do as well as that weird bit in the middle where everyone sort of talks over each other, and they even acknowledge this because Josh and Melissa say, sorry, we can't hear you while you're all talking over each other. It's poking fun at a musical theatre trope, which is what Schmigadoon has come to be about. Immediately within this number, we can see ensemble members in cabaret-style costumes. There's going to be much more of that later. There's also a joke about Sutton Foster having appeared in both Thoroughly Modern Millie and The Music Man. Just a little bit of fun trivia for musical theatre fans watching. So within this song, we meet a lot of our main characters for the season. We see that Alan Cumming is playing someone unmistakably familiar of Sweeney Todd, and Kristen Chenoweth, I have read, is going to be playing his sort of Mrs. Lovett counterpart, but for my money, she also looks a lot like Miss Hannigan, and for what it's worth, we do see some Annie orphans in this number as well. Dove Cameron is obviously giving you Sally Bowles with an iconic short black bob, and we also see what look like an ensemble from Hair. We see some definite hippies in the middle of this sort of noir Chicago style town. What I love about this number is that we start to see the stylistic differences between the musicals of this period and the musicals that were parodied in the original season. Everything was a lot more perfect looking and presentational, whereas in this one we start to see a little bit of fourth wall breaking, and Titus is playing a narrator character. The musicals of this era would start to push the conventions of musical theatre a little bit more and was certainly a lot less traditional. At the end of this song, a banner unfurls as Titus tells us that we're going to be telling the story of Josh and Melissa. This is something that happens in Pippin, but the design of the banner also reminds me a little bit of the Mystery of Edwin Drood. I'm not too sure about that one, but that was just the vibe that I got. I got a Drood vibe. If anyone else can pick out exactly what that banner was meant to be parodying, let me know, because it wasn't reminding me visually of Pippin. As they then walk down the streets of the town Schmicago, there's a few little Easter eggs we can see as well that will come to mean more by the end of the episode. There is a street sign saying Lloyd Street, I assume for Andrew Lloyd Webber. Then, much like in the first season, Josh and Melissa need a place to stay, so they go into the lobby of a hotel, and on the desk is Anne Harada. She is no longer the wife of the mayor, she is now a German woman with a blonde finger wave. Very much Fraulein Schneider from Cabaret. I love that as they encounter her character, the underscoring plays the theme from the song that she sang in the first season. He's a queer one, that man of mine. Even though she's very much a different person here. As this scene continues, there is a random woman in the lobby sat down who is drinking a cocktail out of a Manhattan glass, and she says, I'll drink to that. It's very much a nod to Joanne from Stephen Sondheim's Company in the song Ladies Who Lunch. Josh and Melissa are then sent up to their room, which is a little bit dingy, not unlike Fraulein Schneider's rooms in the musical Cabaret, and much like in that show, we then almost immediately meet Sally Bowles, who makes her own way into the room, introduces herself to the couple, decides they're going to be excellent friends, and very much intrudes on their privacy. The whole scene is very much familiar of one of Sally's early scenes in the musical Cabaret when she sings the song Perfectly Marvelous. She says the word marvelous several times throughout this scene just to really nod to that number. Her character is not called Sally Bowles here, she's called Jenny Banks. And you could read into this like it's a Mary Poppins reference, but I feel like it's just another very British sounding name. She basically implores them to come down to the Crat Club, not the Kit Kat Club, but the Crat Club with 2 T's and 2 B's, where she will be performing a new number. And when they do go downstairs, they find all of the patrons of the bar in a freeze frame, which is definitely familiar of the Fosse-directed film. I've never seen this in a stage version of Cabaret, but perhaps there was something like this in the original. In any case, I feel like it's a nod to the film specifically, where you have all of these different shots of the people in the Kit Kat Club just frozen, and you get to see the expressions on their faces and all of the smoke and all of that. So then they take a seat and we get another musical number. But this musical number is not a nod to Cabaret, but another Fosse-directed musical. I'm talking about the sweet charity number, Hey Big Spender, and so much of this number is so familiar of this song. It's such a close parody. They have the bar in front, they have that sort of still choreography, and then they burst into the crazy moments of dance. It's also very familiar of it in the music as well. There's even a section of the song that parodies the "Would you like to have fun, fun, fun?" Soon afterwards we meet Ariana DeBose, who is playing the MC character, which is a really refreshing change of pace to have Ariana DeBose playing our MC. I mean, you've got Alan Cumming right there, which would have been the super obvious choice. He's played it in the same production decades apart. He's become almost synonymous with the role. How fun to keep things fresh and change it up and keep us on our toes by having Ariana DeBose as a woman playing the MC instead. She is very much the MC from Cabaret. She even says the words "leave your troubles outside" and refers to the girls as beautiful. Speaking of the girls, they're all given names, but they're not named after the Cabaret girls from the show. They instead are named after the orphans from Annie, except for one who is called Elsie, a name you should remember from the musical Cabaret, but for different reasons. More on her in a minute. It's then that we meet the mellifluous Patrick Page, who you may know as having been the original Hades from Hadestown. He is introduced to Josh and Melissa as the owner of the Krat Club, and he comes and sits with them at their table, and we get a distinctly sinister and lecherous vibe, but I can't necessarily put my finger squarely on what character he's meant to be parodying. I have some thoughts and some suspicions, but nothing is necessarily coming to me at this time. It's then that Dove Cameron gets to perform her big number, and immediately we see her there with a chair, and we know this is going to be some kind of a Mine Hair moment, but the introduction to the song in the first verse are very much giving you a nod to the title song from the musical Cabaret. It's giving you a little parody of that "I used to have a girlfriend known as Elsie" section, and then we go into a parody of Mine Hair with a song called Kaput. I think this is a really fun song. My favourite thing about it is there's a lyric that at one point rhymes the word Munich with the word eunuch, and that to me is ingenious. As if it wasn't obvious enough, Dove Cameron also literally says the words "mine hair" at one point during this song, and the whole staging of it, with her doing increasingly crazy things on a chair, is taking the Fosse mine hair choreography from the film and reductio ad absurdum. It's going to this crazy place where the chairs are spinning independently and she's just doing these wild splits and gymnastic positions. It's very, very funny. At the end of this, Josh leaves to go to the bathroom and Melissa gets a phone call at one of the telephones that is on the table, much like they have telephones on the tables in the Kit Kat Club and Cabaret. We then see Josh walking past a guy in a half animal suit, like he's half of a pantomime horse or something. He's reading what I believe is a literal copy of Mein Kampf. Again, we get the Nazi undertones from Cabaret, but he's also in a half animal costume, kind of like you have the gorilla costume in Cabaret. Maybe there's something there, I don't know. Maybe that's just a throwaway reference, or maybe it will come to mean something. In any case, Josh accidentally goes into a dressing room where he finds Elsie dead on the floor. So if you hadn't clocked it already, Elsie is a reference to the character mentioned by Sally Bowles in the musical Cabaret and the song Cabaret. I used to have this girlfriend known as Elsie, with whom I shared 4 sordid rooms in Chelsea. The day she died, the neighbours came to snicker. So Elsie is, of course, the ill-fated former friend of Sally Bowles, and she meets a similar fate very early in this season. On the shot where we see her lying on the floor of the dressing room, we can see a tattoo on her upper arm that says Bobby. Earlier, when we got the shot of SCHMICAGO, you could just about make out a sign that said Bobby Flanagan, attorney at law, though we don't yet know who that is. But I have my suspicions. While all this is going on, we hear the Magic to Do fanfare again, the ooh, but in a dramatic version. After Melissa finds Josh standing over Elsie's corpse, another of the dancers sees them there and then screams murder. They have to try and flee. They go back to their car, but they can't leave. They open up the boot and find Martin Short as a leprechaun, reprising his Finian's Rainbow-esque character from the first season of Schmigadoon. He is here to tell them that they achieved something in that season, but there is still more that they need to come to terms with in order to sort of succeed in the world and be able to leave. Essentially, they need to find greater happiness. They try and think enough happy thoughts to just get out through the mist, but they find themselves walking back into Schmicago, much like they did when they first tried to leave Schmigadoon, and they are subsequently arrested by Sergeant Rivera and his police. I was looking for Easter eggs everywhere at this point. He's got numbers on his hat that say 358, and the little license plate on the police wagon that Josh is taken away in says 425162. I don't know if there's anything in any of that, but maybe someone will know. Listen, I tried to crack the code. I googled those numbers. Were they years? Were they like months and years? I can't work it out. I mean, 42 is like 42nd Street, but I don't know what the rest of it means. If anyone has a breakthrough, let me know and share with the group. But those have been all of the musical theatre Easter eggs that I found in the first episode of Schmigadoon Season 2, aka Schmicago. So I told you I'd bring you a little bit of a review, and I really enjoyed this episode. I think it certainly helps for me that we're moving into an era where the material is a little bit richer to parody. In the first season, the songs sort of loosely related. You had ones like the Do Re Mi Sound of Music number that was more of a close parody, but a lot of the others were sort of just thematically similar while they couldn't play on such specific tropes. And in this one, the songs are more specific. They have more of their own identities, so it's more of a gift to a composer trying to write parodies. We're also able to explore darker and more dramatic themes, because that's what these musicals started to deal with, and I probably prefer this era of musicals to like the classic Golden Age stuff, so this appeals a lot to me as well, and I enjoy this very much. I also really love that Josh and Melissa are just so on board with it straight away, and it started with them wanting to go back, rather than them being unwillingly plunged into it again, because I feel like in the first season, we spent a long time waiting for them to really get on board with their circumstances, and with Keegan-Michael Key as Josh just whining about it. I like the dynamic that they have as a couple a lot more in this season. It still feels real and they still argue, but it's easier for us to enjoy as an audience. And I'm looking forward to meeting all of these different characters. We have enough different shows going on that it doesn't feel quite as samey. All of the songs we've had have been great so far. I will say, because they feel like closer parodies than that first season did, it does just make you want to go and listen to the original songs, like it put Magic to Do in my head and Mine Hair. Maybe if I listen to them a little bit more, I will get those new songs in my head just as much as the others. And I like that we have this murder mystery subplot going on as well. That gives us just another level on which to enjoy the show, as well as all of the musical theatre references. But those have been my thoughts on episode 1 of season 2 of Schmigadoon. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have watched episode 1, let us know what you thought of it in the comment section down below. And don't forget to tell us what your favourite musical theatre reference was, and point out any that I might have missed. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to subscribe to my channel for much more content, including my other recaps of the rest of the episodes of this series of Schmigadoon. And don't forget to go and subscribe to Broadway by Ghostlight as well. He makes fantastic content about this show. I hope that everyone is staying safe and that you have a stagey day. For 10 more seconds, I'm Mickey Joe Theatre. Oh my god, hey, thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!